to the second episode of the Inside LPY After Hours. Super glad that you are joining us. Hope you enjoyed last week's episode. I know that we thoroughly enjoyed making last week's episode, whether you watched it or not. But tonight we are talking about specifically the first core value of LPY, and that is a place to belong. So our three core values: a place to belong, a place to grow, and a place to make a difference. So this week we talked about belonging. So here's my first question for y'all. The first question is, what does that? Oh, that camera's not even on me, is it? What a dummy. Okay, well that's the way we're starting. That'll work. First question is, what does it mean to belong? Like, I know that's vague and that is intentional. So what does it mean to belong?
For me,
Go for it.
oh, I think that to belong is to be a part of something and to like feel like you're a part of it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Being comfortable. Okay, that's what I wanted to say.
No talking.
Oh, being
I
comfortable.
pull that joker so you're comfortable. There you go.
You gotta like touch it with your nose.
Yeah. Well, don't hit your elbow.
Okay. Being comfortable for sure. Like belonging. Like you don't really belong somewhere if you're not really comfortable there. And so I wouldn't consider myself belonging somewhere unless I'm comfortable.
Yeah, that's a good point. The interesting part of that, I think, is like sometimes we try to make ourselves think we belong somewhere that we don't, and like discomfort is a good point to that. Like if I'm trying to act like I belong somewhere, but I'm constantly uncomfortable, that should be a rather good indication that I do not belong there, or I shouldn't belong there. What do you think some of the barriers are to belonging? Like, why is it that we belong in certain areas, certain places, certain friend groups, and then we don't in others?
I think a lot of the time it's because people are just trying to fit in and they don't actually belong.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point. What else?
Like they're changing themselves to fit in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Such as what? Like, what do you think are some of the examples of that? Like, what are some of the ways we try to belong to stuff that we shouldn't?
Probably like if there's like a certain friend group or like a popularity group or whatever, and you just want to be in it, a lot of people will change themselves to be in it so that, so I can get invited to this birthday party or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. You know, the thoughts y'all are being quiet. We can't have this.
Oh.
Can you remind me of the question?
What are some of the barriers? What does it mean to belong, and then what are some of the barriers to belonging in certain groups, or and then also too, the third question was, what are some of the things that we try to belong to that we might not should?
So I think like another kind of definition for belonging is like feeling safe with your feelings and also feeling like physically safe. Because like if you don't feel safe, then you're not really gonna. I mean, I don't really think they belong in that place. You know?
Yeah, I mean, very similar to what Desi was saying. Like that idea of safety and comfort go together. Like also too, like, not that anything horrible happened to me or anything like that in my childhood, but I was never one to go spend the night with people, like friends. Like everyone came and spent the night at my house, and I think some of that was just because I'm unbelievably cool, obviously. But probably more so to that was I'm quite the homebody, and so.
Yeah.
But my point in saying that is there were plenty of times when I was a kid that, like, it was obvious that I didn't belong to someone's family because I was rather uncomfortable with being at their house, right? And not even in a weird way. Like, I'm not saying I was uncomfortable because weird things were happening. I'm saying like I was just uncomfortable, and obviously I'm not part of their family. But to your point, that is an obvious indication that you don't belong to something. And then the worst case scenario in that is, like you just said, is this safety. Like, I don't feel safe. That's when it does get very, very problematic, right? Like, if I'm spend the night with someone and then I don't feel safe, that's like the next level of you don't belong. You need to get out, you know?
Also, I feel like where people try to belong, that I feel like isn't really talked about. Because like when we talk about trying to
Go ahead.
like, I don't know. when we're trying to feel like talk about places that we feel welcomed and that we belong, we forget about like family situations as well. Like
Yeah.
in like a more serious situation, like let's say that your parents are like atheist and you're a Christian,
Yeah.
then you know,
Oh, that's a good point.
when maybe at the family table, like I've had situations like this where like they don't pray for food but you do, and then they're kind of like eating
weird.
and they're kind of looking at you like, what are you doing?
Mm.
You know, just stuff like that also I feel like is where we can also be influenced, like Avon was talking about, to
Yeah.
like, you know, like if people
Bad friend groups. And stuff.
yeah, if people aren't, or like if the people around you are like judging you on stuff like that, then it's gonna make you feel small, I guess, and
Insignificant.
yes, and just stop, you know, like just gradually stop.
That's you bring up an interesting situation. Maybe we have reached already a depth that we should wait on, but most of these, like when we talk about what we talked about belonging tonight, is I don't want to say small things because they're obviously big to us in the moment, but like comparatively small things like friend groups, a football team, basketball, whatever. But when you get even more significant when you talk about family, and like I feel like I don't belong, and so I think that gets really complicated because you just said that if you don't feel like you belong, you need to get out. What do you do if it's your family and you can't get out?
Yeah.
You know, like what do you do in that situation?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, or anybody for that matter. I don't even know that I know the answer to that.
That's
But,
the kind of situation that I'm in.
That's like a personal situation, so it kind of depends on what's happening in your life. So like the best way I've found to kind of separate from family that maybe I don't feel like I belong with, is just, I mean, just don't hang out with them, you know? Like, eat dinner in your room, I guess. That's what I do.
Oh, go ahead, Nancy.
I like personally don't have that situation, but then I've been put in groups of people where I have to work with them and have to get along with them, and like so like that's kind of like a family, like especially
Similar.
at work, like my work family,
Mhm.
because working at a daycare, like it's a family. We're raising kids together, and so like when it comes to a place where I don't feel like I belong, you have to work at it. Like when I first started working where I work, I didn't feel like I belonged, and so like I tried to find ways we could connect. I tried to like forget about our differences and just get along with what we did agree on, and like it's like you have to work on it. That's kind of what I've learned, and sometimes it's hard because like an atheist and Christian, like, and that's obvious, like obviously a place where it's like nowhere to go, but like maybe you can agree on like the little stuff, like
Yeah.
a family vacation, and just leave that part out because it causes chaos and disruption.
Yeah. Which I mean, this is probably for later, but it's kind of the solution may be to what we were talking about tonight. I mean, it's very similar to like church, to youth. There's people that are different there. There's people there that frustrate me. There's people who frustrate you. And the answer to that's not necessarily isolation and get away all the time. It's endurance, like we talked about tonight. But let me say this too. Like, I mean, we're talking about in a situation where you are merely discomforted, not that you're in danger. Like, if you're in danger, you need to get out of that situation.
Emotionally.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, but if your safety is at danger, then you need to make a move. Like, you need to tell somebody you need to do something, right? But anyway, let's talk about like how does this translate to church and spirituality? Like, what are the barriers sometimes, do you think, to belonging when it comes to church and your spiritual life?
Different branches of Christianity and different branches of religion. Like, and that's kind of like a big world problem, but like someone like you'll be talking about someone with your faith and like Jesus this, and then they might have a whole different spin on it.
Mm.
And so originally you connect, but then y'all having one disagreement about the religion can completely
yeah.
pull y'all apart.
Yeah.
When in reality, if you believe that Jesus died on the cross for your sins and he was
Main thing.
like
yeah.
that, like y'all are believing in the same Savior, so that shouldn't really pull you apart in the long run.
Yeah. Which we do a pretty horrible job of in
Yeah.
American Christianity.
And like social media and like the world just tries to like pull all those branches
Mhm.
apart, and like bad. Like you watch videos, it's like this branch of Christianity against this one. Like they it's so obvious, and everybody's like, oh ha ha, that's so funny. But in reality, it's pulling us apart.
Yeah.
And making us weak because we're not together and fighting for like the same purpose.
Correct. And then also too, like little divisions inside of the divisions. Like there's divisions inside of denominations. Like different types of this denomination, different types of that denomination.
I wanted to bring up earlier about like the gosh, how did I forget what we were talking about? What? Oh my gosh, belonging. Okay. When it first came up, I kind of thought of a worldly view on it, and like a way to belong, something that makes me feel belonged is like having the same goal.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of goes with religion. Like if everybody just had the mindset of I have the goal to share the gospel and love people around me, like if everybody had that mindset, it'd be very easy to belong.
Yeah.
And like if you have the same goal as somebody, you can belong with them. Like you can belong with that group of people. That's kind of.
Well, let me ask this, and I mean you somewhat answered it there. I actually probably fully answered it there, Desi. And so I guess what I'm asking is that you elaborate on that. Is we talked about tonight how it's like super special and a beautiful thing when people who are wildly different come together and belong together and have a family together and have unity. How do we do that? How do you take someone who frustrates you and then belong with them in the same group or area?
I fully believe that people that come from different walks of life can have the same goal. I know people that have the same goal as me that have came from completely different walks of life,
Yeah.
like completely. And so like when it comes to belonging, instead of me thinking of okay, where have we came from, what have we gone through, what traumas do we have, what experiences do we have, I think what is our goal?
Mm-hmm.
How do we want to change the world? And if like me and that person agrees on how our goals in life and how to change that world, we should put our past in the back, and not let our family life and our trauma and our past experience get in the way of that bond we should have.
Yeah, and I mean maybe this turns into an interview with Desi, because and not that anybody else can't share. I'm just saying, Desi is obviously fantastic at what we're talking about. So I guess my question specifically for you, Desi, is how are you so good at that? How are you so good at helping people belong specifically? And I think here's the massive challenge that people have. I think if you were to ask people, do you want to be the person that helps people grow spiritually? The answer to that's probably yes, right?
But are you willing to do it like it takes?
Yes, and then I think where people struggle largely with this is, though they won't say it because most people are humble, is they're further along spiritually, and it's difficult to help someone. Again, the way we say it is it's 1 through 10 where you're at spiritually. So if I'm at a 7, it can be difficult to help someone spiritually who's a 2, because the 2s tend to frustrate the 7s. So I guess specifically for you, how do you do that effectively? Which I know you just said we focus on the same goal, but the difficulty is the 2 ain't focused on that goal. Does that make sense?
Yeah. My original answer came from like a leadership position, because I'm constantly having to work with people with like my leadership like places in my life, and so I have to push the past away and look towards the future goal. But when it just comes to like everyday life, when I connect and bond with people, I have to go from the bottom and like
Start from the bottom over here.
And so like how how that mean? Whoa, what that means? How that means? What that means is like we're all human. We have all had the suckiest days ever, and so like the people I connect to, and why do I keep forgetting our word? What's our word? Belong. The people that okay, the people that I want to belong with. How I do that? I just remember all human.
Mm-hmm.
Like middle school were the worst 2 years of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I was an awful person. If anybody knows me from that person I'm sorry. Like I come talk to me now, cause that was bad. And so like I just remember like when I meet somebody new, or someone who comes up to me I've known my whole life and they're just being an awful person, I go, "Hi, middle school Jesse. Let me be the person I didn't have."
Yeah. That's a good point.
You're human.
You were
like,
a 2 once.
Yes, I was an awful person, and like I didn't like. Well, like it's like I didn't like murder nobody, but like
You kind of hesitated.
I mean like
You were like, I didn't.
She almost has
Well,
before,
and
so
then
it's
you started-
okay.
Then you started thinking, have you murdered
I was
somebody,
like-
Nancy?
no, like I was like it's like but like if I
You hated them? So
Yeah,
you murdered them?
I-
You went
it-
the spiritual like place where Jesus said if you hate someone, you murdered them.
yeah, and another thing I have to just remind myself is like it because when you want someone to belong, you have to leave your bubble and go into their bubble.
That's a good point.
You have to leave your little comfort zone and go into there, and people are gonna judge you.
Mm-hmm.
People are looking at you like, why are you hanging out with them? Why are you talking to them? Why are you helping them? Why are you eating lunch with them? People come up to me and be like, Jesse, why are you talking to them? I was like, have you talked to them? They go, no. They're a pretty good person. My thing is when people come up to me and like talk bad about people or yada yada, say like crap about people, I say, there's not bad people. There's good people making bad decisions. And like I just have to tell myself that no matter how bad they are, no matter how, like what they're doing, what they're saying, they're a good person making a bad decision.
Yeah.
Because we have no room to judge, and like I have no room to judge. So that's kind of like how I like stay connected with people.
It's that it's the garbage of our culture, or I would be interested to know like what it is psychologically that makes us feel the need to put everybody in a category. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then we're going to determine that those categories can't talk to each other. Avon, you got something to say?
Yeah, there was something you said earlier about how it would be hard for like a 7 to help out like a 2 or a 4,
Mm-hmm.
and then it makes them mad. But like for me, I feel like I don't have that problem. Like,
Wow,
Whoa!
I feel like
Good job,
whenever
Avon's perfect.
She's a 10,
That's
y'all.
her father
No,
in heaven's
but I
perfect.
feel like
Gold
I feel
star
like if
for
I
you,
ever
Avon.
meet somebody who's in a bad place, I don't get angry with them because you have to. I mean, I understand. Like, I feel like I don't get angry with them or frustrated. When I'm trying to help somebody out.
How?
What do you mean how?
You are
How do you want to
you were
help
the
somebody?
exception. You were by far the exception.
I just don't get mad at people. Like, if I just try and understand, like, you have to put yourself in their shoes, even if you can't physically or, like, if you can't actually be in their situation, which most of the time you're, like, pretty much all the time you're not, but you can, especially, I'm very empathetic, so whenever I hear, like, whenever I'm talking to somebody who's having issues with their walk with God or things like that, or they're just really not close with Him, I don't get frustrated. I just put myself in their shoes as best as I can.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, at least on the surface, easier to be patient with someone if they're struggling spiritually, or at least for me. I think the difficulty is that most of the time, people who are struggling spiritually, it doesn't translate into spiritual matters. It's not like most of the time a 2 is not going, wow, I don't know how to pray. The 2 is stealing your wallet and spitting on, or you know what I'm saying? Like it's not typically I'm struggling reading my Bible. It's something that affects us tangibly, and we struggle to see it spiritually.
Can I say something?
You'll have to
There you
lean.
go.
No one will be able to see you.
Shimmy in.
Caleb's getting in here.
All right.
That'll work. That'll work.
So, this is what I learned in history a while ago.
History's
So
good.
Martin Luther,
Martin, German.
he disagreed with the church, and he wrote the 95 Theses, and it was saying all the wrongdoing of the church and how he disagreed with him, and he was basically saying, I don't agree with y'all, I don't belong here, so I'm gonna make my own place where I belong. And I think all about belonging in the church is mostly about finding what you agree with, finding what you like, finding anything that you just agree with and you can latch onto and carry out until you die. And off of what Desi said earlier, she said, have you ever really talked to that person? Have you ever really
That's a big point right
find
there.
out something about that? So I'm friends with a bunch of people like that. Like, why are you friends with that person? They did this, that, and that. I'm like, well, they also do this and that, and they're kind of people, and they...
Make sure you speak. They won't be able to hear the fantastic things you're saying.
They're kind of people,
There you
and
go.
they appreciate people, and they do this, and that's just how people are. They have their benefits, they have their flaws. That's everybody.
Yeah. Well, to that, like I like to always say, and I'm not, admittedly, usually the most optimistic person, like you find folks. But I always like to say every positive has a negative, and every negative has a positive. So you get to choose, your perspective on things to that point of how you see things in life and how you see people in life, because like Desi said, we've all been in certain places, and then also most of the time, again, negatives can be used as a positive in some ways, in shape, forms, or fashion. So that's good.
Another thing I feel like we haven't talked about with belonging is like, and this is kind of hard to explain, but I think I have a very anxious mind. And so sometimes I can feel like I don't belong when literally I'm just in my own head. And like, you do belong. And I feel like that can also separate you from like really good people, because I've done that with our friend group a bunch of times where I don't feel like I belong and I separate myself and like just like completely shut them out, which is terrible. Don't do that. But like, and then they come and they're like, Desi like brings me Taco Bell or something, and she's like, hey, you do belong, like come on, like let's go to Sunday Fun Day and stuff like that. And so I feel like you also have to realize what's happening in the moment and not like what's in your head.
That's a massive point. Let me ask you this, and this is going to sound like I'm picking on you. I promise I'm not. I'm just legitimately curious, because I do not have an anxious mind. Kind of based on what we're talking about now, and this is going to sound really harsh. Again, I do not mean it harsh. Do you
I'm
think?
sensitive, Clay.
Well, do you think what you just said there, that you getting in your own head, do you think that's a selfish thing?
In a negative way, maybe.
I don't know. Because like, what do you mean? Like,
I guess here's why I'm asking that, and here's where my mind goes: is you're a fantastic human, and when you get on your own in your own head like that, and you feel like you don't belong, and then you pull away, I think that does two things. One, it prioritizes your feelings over reality, and then it also deprives everyone around you of you.
yeah, then it is a selfish thing. Yeah. Well,
I didn't say not to make you feel bad.
No. I mean, you have to admit your flaws, and that's how you fix them, is realizing what you do
I
wrong.
do plenty of selfish things myself. So.
And so that is kind of a selfish habit that I do subconsciously.
I think it's a selfish way, a selfish thing in a negative way, like negative towards Sarah. Like,
Yeah.
it's like her body, like her flesh is sabotaging herself,
I
like
agree with that.
self-sabotage.
I agree with that.
Because like when it does happen, I'm like, oh, she's like self-sabotaging herself, like we all do. And so like it is selfish, but selfish is usually used like I'm benefiting myself. That's like a selfish where she is hurting herself.
Correct. I agree with that.
And it's not like, because like when people hear selfish, they're like, oh, she's just me.
Yeah, I'm not full of myself.
Not necessarily. Yeah, that's right. That's
She's
good to say.
she's not walking away like, I'm better than them.
Yeah.
I don't need them.
Self-deprecation. Yeah, that's a good point.
So, like, sometimes I'll catch myself and I'm, like, trying to force myself into a conversation when I'm with some people I'm not very familiar with. And I need to, like, catch myself. And I'll be like, hey, don't force myself to belong here. Because,
that's a big point.
because, like, if I know I'm forcing myself into it, it's going to make it awkward on myself and everyone. And that goes to that selfish self-sabotaging thing.
Caleb just brings up an interesting question right there is, what role do you play in belonging in something? Because he is 100% right. Like, there is some serious danger in trying to force yourself into belonging somewhere. But what role do we play, I think? Or the question is, what role do we play in belonging somewhere?
I think sometimes we play the judger, judging whether someone should belong or not. And, like, because you have this friend group, and I'm usually really protective over my friend group. And so I have to kind of, like, let loose and understand, like, it's okay for people to come in and out. And I can find myself judging someone over one action. And I saw something and it said, someone has judged you off one action, and that's who they think of you. And so, like, and that's awful.
Yeah.
And not saying that you need to try to be perfect every day. Just when you see someone act some way, you can't define them completely off that one action or that one sentence they said.
Yeah.
And so, like, I feel like a lot of us can play the judger. It's like, oh, like, they don't belong here because they did this one thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point.
I feel like on the other hand of that, also, like, I don't want to say, like, being judged, but, like, trying to be the person to belong in, like, a certain group. Personally, I feel like you can just give, like, your all, but, like, if a wall is hitting a wall, you're not gonna go anywhere. So, like, what I always do is I give my best to people, you know, and if they're not giving that back, what I want back, or, like, what, I don't know how to, like, say this, like, what, like
giving the same energy, like,
yeah,
like,
kind of.
like meeting you in the middle. Maybe?
Yes, like, if they're not meeting me in the middle, then they're 90% of the time going through something themselves, you know, and, like, just giving them that space, and but also still being there for them, but kind of being like, okay, so I'm just gonna give you some space and go hang out with people who, you know, really do care about my
You're
feelings.
not planning
right
a
now.
beach trip with them or nothing.
No, right. And I feel like that's also a part with belonging is, like, your friends and people are temporary. So I feel like God puts the people in your life that you need in that moment for certain things. And sometimes, you know, friends, like, you needed them in that moment, and friendships just kind of die down a little bit as you get older, or as someone matures or immatures, or situations change. So people are temporary as well.
100%.
So, like, one of my friends very recently, they have their negative sides, they have their positive sides. Recently, one of their negative sides showed a lot, and I didn't appreciate it. I called them out for it, and what I'm doing now is I'm going to distance myself for a while, and I'm going to slowly bring it back in. So it's like, hey, you did this wrong. I'm going to give you space, think about it, and I'll approach you later and see how you take it. And
TTYL.
I talk to you later. That took me a second.
Yeah.
That's like early 2000s, right?
Yeah, like nobody does that.
But I have my moments where I show my negative side, and I need to apologize for that more, because I'm wanting to be better as a person. That's my goal every day, to be a better person and make things better than they were. That's what my old conditioning coach, Coach Oliver, said. He would say, leave things better than you found it, and I want to make myself better than I found it.
Just for clarification, when you say older, do you mean he used to be your conditioning coach, or that he is an old man?
No.
Like, last year, he was my conditioning coach.
No, he's not.
but my goal for myself is to be better, and
That's a fantastic goal.
yes, and hopefully when I get to the point of where I think I am better than I've started, way better than I've started, I want to spread it and let other people get better.
Well, perhaps you get to a 10, and like we say, you just levitate up into the air, and you go be with God and Elijah.
I want to say that I think what Sarah was talking about how sometimes well, I mean, never mind. I'm going to piggyback off that and make my own new topic, but it's like okay, so I feel like also a part of belonging somewhere is looking around, and this goes back to when we talked about our like who you want at your table, is looking around and thinking like about if you really want this person at your table, or if you look around and you think I belong at this table, but maybe I shouldn't, and like trying to better yourself from that.
There's certainly tables you shouldn't belong at.
Speaking of tables and people, Jada, do you have anything to say?
We're all
Not
looking
at
at
the
Jada and
moment.
Andy. Had so much wisdom that they shared.
Yeah,
with
y'all
us.
do have so much wisdom.
Callie, you have something to say.
Yes. Okay. So this is like piggybacking off of what Caleb said and Desi said.
What does piggybacking mean?
It's like you take the topic and you like bounce it off. Yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
Take it and then you like
Make sure you talk
fluctuate
in that
just a little
microphone.
bit.
So this is like about friendships and all like friendships and relationships, I guess you could say. God wants you to learn a lesson through most of them. And I've been through many friendships that I've had to learn a lesson from. An example, I guess, would be with belonging. If I wanted to be with somebody, like as a friend and be their friend, but I wasn't quite like them, I would like want to change myself to fit in the group with them. But the lessons that I've learned from that is you don't need to change yourself because there's people out there that want to be friends with you for who you are
Absolutely.
and not just what you're trying to change yourself to be into.
I'm glad you've learned that lesson, Callie. Yeah. That's super.
I
What?
had to learn it the hard way,
Callie, said
sadly.
Callie.
Oh, no, for Kaylee.
Kaylee or Callie.
Either goes.
Now Jada feels pressure to say something.
You're welcome.
I had it, but I lost it, and it's too far gone now.
It's out there somewhere
We do, but
in the mind of your
we're
universe.
just too wise for y'all to comprehend it.
That's without a doubt.
Right.
Without a doubt.
What did
Totally.
you just say?
I have
It's
some
too wise
scripture
for
for
us to
this
comprehend.
situation.
Yeah.
I have scripture
We're
for this
too much
situation.
Oh, I even got scripture. Go.
Okay, this is my all-time favorite verse.
Yeah, even.
This
Go
is
for it.
Proverbs 27:17, and it's iron sharpens iron as a friend sharpens a friend. And this is what I have to do. This has to do with belonging, because if you start hanging out with someone and you're thinking you're going to be able to change them, y'all are going to change each other, whether that's in a good or a bad way.
Well, I mean, to that point too, like the biggest display of that is marriage, which I know y'all are not. That's not your work, not your world.
Me and Desi are close.
But
Oh my lord.
it's a strange thing to say.
No.
Uh,
Shaking my head over here.
but like, and maybe you've seen it before, but like, you ever notice that when people get married, like they start acting like each other?
Mm-hmm.
I do that now.
Sarah. My lord.
My goodness.
Figure out.
My goodness.
I just like the people I'm hanging out with. Like I just start to like say stuff they say and do stuff
That's-
they do.
okay.
I've
That's-
noticed I've done that ever since I started school. Like,
Yeah, it's
'cause-
yeah.
But for
It's
context,
crazy.
for people who don't know, Jada was previously homeschooled. and
Oh
now
yeah,
She's
call her
not-
out.
She's not profoundly behind like she just made herself sound.
Oh,
like
okay.
when I first started school.
Everyone at the table knew that, so I didn't think I'd have to
She
clarify.
just started first grade.
Yeah. She is a very wise, as she done stated. First grade.
Done stated. Yep,
Done-
I
done
talk like
stated.
Clay
Done
more than I
stated.
talk like anybody, to be
Yeah.
honest. So.
Well, that will not do you any favors. All right, so we're gonna take a little bit of a break, and when we come back, we will have a brand new table.
I'm gonna
Not
take
an
a nap.
actual table. We'll have different people here by that.
Also, there's no food
Oh,
this time, and
Andy.
it's really
That is
disappointing.
tragic. I meant for that to happen.
Yeah, I'm
sorry that it didn't.
starving.
There will be next week.
But Annie needs to say something.
Andy, share us with your infinite
so-
wisdom.
This has nothing to do with belonging.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing it at this meeting that we're talking about belonging.
What you said about like Proverbs, my favorite verse also comes from Proverbs. It's Proverbs 6:9. It's my little motivation verse. It's when will you get out of bed, you slacker. Every time
She
no,
reads that
because
every
my
morning.
alarm will go off in the school morning, and I hate getting up for school. That verse pops in my head, and I'm like, okay. That's
For
what
God
gets
so loved
me
the
up.
world, you can do anything through Christ who strengthens.
You
She
could
chooses
use
the
that
sluggard
for
one.
belonging, though.
Yes.
You can use it for belonging.
Be careful. You've taken my class. We don't want to take things out of context.
Huh?
Yes. Jesus
How
loves
does that
you. Good
pertain
night.
to belonging?
Well, I mean, like, you can just, I'm not taking it
Happy
out
New
of
Year.
context. You also said there's multiple, what's it called? Like, uses.
Perspectives.
Applications.
Applications.
One meaning thousands of applications.
Right. So, like, it can be an application. I wasn't saying that's what it was about.
Okay.
Both of y'all's views can impact each other's views.
Iron and sharpen iron.
I have something to say before we end.
Okay.
Okay, are we done? You right? You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Table one loves you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Let's start off with to you guys. What does it mean to y'all to belong?
I think what it means to belong is, let me collect my words before I say and like a lot. To be safe physically and both in the way you present yourself, feeling welcome to be yourself, I suppose. That sounds not very smart or
Well, no,
intelligent.
that's what belonging means to you. So
There you go.
it's valid.
I think it might sound like a little cliche,
Yeah,
but just kind of where your heart desires. I mean, there's a place where you feel comfortable and the people you're around, they don't really bring stress, and where you feel like you can be yourself. You don't have to put any barriers on yourself. You can just be free and be however you think, but then they also set you straight and try to help you and motivate you to be where you need to be.
Yeah.
Okay. Huh? Okay. I was gonna kind of say something similar that kind of also sounds like what? Okay. Kind of also sounds cliche, but I think I guess part of what it means to belong somewhere is like you're meant to be there. What?
Get closer to
Sorry.
You're good.
Sorry again. Okay. Like you're meant to be there, like how it says in the Bible, I don't know where, but that we belong to Jesus, or like we belong with Jesus, like and I think especially before you get saved, and this kind of goes along with what we were talking about last week with self-worth, is like your soul's looking for that thing that you belong to, and so you try to fill it with all these things that you don't find your worth in. But what? Okay. And I mean, like, you belong to Jesus, so when you find that and you get saved, you have that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Adri, you have anything to say?
I think for me, sort of like somewhat like what Wade said, and just like just naturally, like just feeling loved. I think that's also a big thing just for me personally, just like feeling loved and not feeling like tension and feeling like I don't know, because sometimes I will like overthink certain situations when I'm like around some people, and I'll feel like, oh, maybe they don't like me and blah blah. Like I instantly what? It's true. Like me. Like instantly, I'll feel like you just like know when you don't belong somewhere. Like you just feel it. And so for me, it's kind of like I just, like Wade said, just like being able to be yourself and like just feeling loved and yeah.
Somewhere you can feel loved is where you think that like you belong. Is where you can feel like people love you.
Yeah.
Can I? Something interesting else interesting that Wade said is it's somewhere where your heart desires to be or go, something like that. And I think that was very interesting because it kind of leads us into the question of what are some bad things that we try to belong to, because the Bible literally tells us like our hearts are evil, our hearts are deceitful. And so sometimes our hearts try to tell us to belong to something that is less than Jesus. So
Yeah.
I feel like most of that is like who you're comfortable like being around. Like if you go like and start talking to like strangers and stuff, I feel like
You gotta lean
think
into
it's like
it.
weird.
yeah, you literally
You
have to
have
be
to
like
lean
this
into it.
close to it.
There you
that's
go.
insane.
That's perfect.
But I feel like going around and like talking to strangers and stuff, like you don't know how to conversate, and then you can go back with your friends, just have like a normal conversation. Like it's all about like who you're comfortable around, like who you can start conversations with.
Yeah.
And I feel like going like that is like an easy way to start, but also like, I mean, I don't really know.
Yeah. So, with all that kind of being said, what are some places, like bad places that we're not supposed to belong, or like where we find ourselves, I guess, belonging and we're not supposed to, or like bad things to put your belonging in?
I don't want to talk first.
You can talk first. Go for it.
Well, that's an interesting question because we can belong on a sports team. We can belong in a theater. We can belong at youth group.
Y'all just gotta say something.
Oh, sorry, I didn't even notice. We can belong in those things, right? We can fit in those places, but it's important that we don't. It's important that we don't find our worth or find our identity in those things, because we have to understand those things are temporary. Those things will not fulfill us. Those things just can't sustain our souls. So,
Yeah. But it's good in the moment to know that you belong somewhere, because it's good to belong to people and like a place.
Right. Yeah.
My thing with, I said it on Sunday night when we were talking about it, and in small groups we talked tonight about belonging. It sounds really annoying, but I feel like I belong like in my own body. Like the Holy Spirit is within me, and I feel like I belong with the Lord. And so that awful feeling of walking into a room and knowing that everybody doesn't like me and letting that affect me. Now, I know people don't like me when I walk into a room, and it doesn't affect me anymore because I know the Holy Spirit's within me, and I know that's who I belong with, so that's where I belong. And it sounds weird, but that's just, I don't know, kind of how I feel about that. So,
How does belonging translate spiritually and with church?
Okay. So, how does belonging...
There has to be a way to turn that off.
Put on D&D. D&D.
Yeah, you can't put on Do Not Disturb. I don't feel like.
Yeah, it might mess up the audio. You said, how does belonging translate spiritually and translate kind of into a church setting?
I'm very confused on like the belonging term right now, because like you can be somewhere that you don't belong and you can be there for a long time, but I mean, I guess it would translate in the way like you do belong to Christ if you've given your life to him, and you can be somewhere that you're not supposed to be. But I guess in the way that we're talking about it, you know, being a member of something. Restate the question.
How does belonging translate spiritually or to a church?
I feel like belonging, especially like with church, you can feel as if you don't belong, and that won't even be your fault sometimes. But like being with other members across, you know, it's very fulfilling because you know it's not like you're all worshiping, you know, God, and it's, I don't know, it's nice, it's communion, and that's really all I can say. Like it feels good, but not in a bad way, and that sounds so dumb, like real raggy. Yeah, I'm about to start rambling, so someone else needs to talk.
Do it.
No, like I mean, like I'm rambling, just saying words. So
No, I do it all the
someone
time.
else does
It's
need
okay.
to talk.
So I guess a simpler way to phrase the question is, what the heck does belonging have to do with what the heck does belonging have to do with church? What does that mean? I guess is what the question is. Yeah, how do you belong at church? Why is it good to belong at church? And why does that matter more than belonging to a football team, belonging to the dance line, belonging to band XYZ?
I'm not. I feel like it's kind of part of doing your part. Like, you all have a part. You know, not everybody has the same gifts, but you do. You know, people belong on the worship team. People belong, you know, as teachers.
That's good.
Yeah.
So I think that is kind of where it comes in with the church setting, but you also need to belong, like, in the bigger picture. So, yeah, that's my thought there.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say that. I think I already said this, or somebody already said this, but okay, thanks. And I think that it kind of goes on with what we were talking about last week. Just you said, like with self-worth, like you're gonna try to belong to what you feel like you're worthy of. And so I think that's kind of it. You're gonna belong to what you feel like you're worthy of. So if you don't feel like you're worth anything, you're gonna go and find places and people you shouldn't be belonging to.
Yeah.
Kind of piggybacking off of Logan. So how he said that, like, some people might belong to worship and stuff, like, you got to think of the people that belong in the band and stuff. I mean, some of those people aren't as talented as others as speaking, and I'm not for example, but I mean, that's their calling. Like, you have to follow your calling. Like, some people's better at speaking, and some people's good at explaining, and like some people don't have that gift. And so you just have to find your value in what you're good at. Like, you can do anything at church and like use your talent. And some people are just good at band, and so they allow people to worship through band, through music. And other people are good at talking, and they might be able to teach people more about the Bible that way.
The next thing let's kind of talk about is how can a 7 help a 2? So we talk about at church, what level are you on spiritually? Are you a 0, like super bad in the, like, just crap, or are you 10 in the trenches, if you will, or 10 literally levitating up into heaven, like feet aren't even on the ground? So how can we help a 2? Like, how can a 7 help a 2? What? No, I did not say that.
Most of the time I feel like a 2, but I don't know. My biggest thing is just getting them here, like, or getting them, or like, actually take that back. Before even getting them here, I hang out with them. You know, sometimes they're annoying, and I shouldn't say that. Oh, this is going out. Anyway, sometimes they're annoying, and like,
what if they watch this, Logan?
I don't care. He isn't gonna watch. They aren't gonna watch. No, but like,
they're gonna be like, "Oh gosh, he was totally talking about me."
Okay, but like, the biggest thing is just hanging out with them. Like,
and all the people that come here because of you are gonna be like, "Logan found me annoying."
No, but like the biggest thing, because you know it comes to the point now. You know, it's just, you know, come to church. You know, come. You know, you can hang out. You can go work out with me after. I do that with the kid I bring to church every Sunday. I want to say his name, but I don't know. The biggest thing is hanging out with them. You know, kind of like Jesus did, I guess. You know, lounging around, and then you know you bring them here, and I don't know. The rest kind of unfolds.
Yeah.
Over time, that's what happened with me. Well, I came here for pizza, but
that's fair.
I came here for girls. So.
Sure.
Hey, look where I'm at now.
Don't have that.
Look where I'm at now.
You're not in the mic.
Yeah, look at Wade now. He's wearing a Stone Cold Steve Austin shirt and it says Austin 316 on it.
Oh my god. Adrian, were you gonna say something? Oh, okay. Well, I guess my answer to the question is, the most influential thing that you can do is really just leading by example through the way you live. If Jesus really shows through you, that's something that people will notice. And then once you kind of catch their attention, like, getting people to church is actually something that I applaud Logan for. I don't know how he's able to do it with, like, so many people. He's brought so many different people to church. That's really amazing. Like, I've only been able to bring one person so far. But so that's
difficult.
Yes, bringing people to church is one of the early steps to helping them, but also, as Logan was kind of describing, there are steps before that. Like, it's the way you live is my answer.
A lot of the times people see me as like a 7, okay?
Right. Right.
But a lot of times I feel like a 2, or even I am a 2. But like Kaylee said, I have to remember that sometimes I'm people's example of Christianity. Like I have to remember to lead by example, because even if I'm a 2, it doesn't give me an excuse to act like a 2.
Right.
So that's all I was gonna say.
That's really good.
I feel like it goes back to like what I was saying earlier about starting a conversation with like a stranger or something, like, because we were all like a 2 at some point, and we all like understand like what that process is, and like going from like a 2 to like even like a 2 to a 4 is like a massive step. But it's like understanding like where they are, like you don't know like what their what their troubles are or whatever, but just like making them feel comfortable, just making them feel loved and whatever you do.
Making them feel like they truly belong. I mean, that's one of the biggest ways that we can continue to help people that are a 2 and we're higher than them. And it's not that we're 7s and they're 2s. It could be that we're a 4 and they're a 2, or we're a 2 and they're a 1. It's just constantly letting others know that they belong and that they're loved, and because Jesus loves them and because Jesus died for them. Like, no matter what, they're loved and they belong somewhere. So
I know a lot of the time some of my friends that I've brought to church, or like that I've tried to bring to church, they don't want to come because they either feel like judged, or like because they think they're 2, or they like are 2 or 1 or 3, whatever. So I think a lot of the times, like one of y'all said, making them feel loved and making them like feel like they belong. I was gonna say another word and I forgot.
Probably like.
Oh my gosh. I'm done speaking.
Oh, can I speak?
yes, you can.
No. Okay, so I guess this isn't a big thing, but all right, I had 2 things to say. What was I gonna say? Oh, to go along with what she was saying, live it by example. It's really hard, like really hard, because one day you're gonna get really mad, you're gonna stub your toe, you're gonna want to say a not nice word, like being honest.
Like what, Logan?
I don't know, but you're gonna look around and you're gonna stub your toe in a locker room, and you're gonna be like,
"There's people in here."
yeah. But other than that, a big thing for me at least was finding like role models. Not like Clay. I mean to Glaze, but like he was kind of like my role model. There were really no other guys, really trying to get in. Now there are, but like at that point in time, and I was kind of lonely. I had nobody, so I'd kind of just sit there and be quiet. But a big thing was, I had someone to look up to, and obviously, it wasn't just him. It was, Jesus, and I found Jesus, and ultimately built a relationship. But that was a really big thing. I feel as if with belonging too, because I don't know, like I didn't want to. Sometimes belonging is being, you got to be near people with similar interests at times.
Yeah.
So I feel like even then, that's why I've gotten along with you in ways, because you're kind of weird. You're kind of
me.
Yeah, no, it is.
Thank you.
But like, you're cool to talk to, and I don't know. Ooh, Clay wants Mike.
Clay Mike.
A massive part of this is if you're a 2. I think if you are a 2 that is interested in growing spiritually, part of the mountain is thinking, well, if I'm a 2, I'll never get to a 7, an 8, or a 9. And so the mountain seems so big that you don't even begin to try, or you get super discouraged. And so to have someone like a role model or something like that, like you're saying, that will help you get from a 2 to a 3 is big. But I think where belonging happens is when you feel like you're a part of a community or a part of something, that when I get from a 2 to a 3, there's going to be people cheering me on and supporting me in the fact that I just went from a 2 to a 3. So part of belonging, a big part of belonging certainly is helping someone. If you're a 7 and get from a 2 to a 3, But another massive part of it, I think we overlook a lot of times, is celebrating the crap out of the fact that a 2 just went to a 3.
Yeah.
And not waiting until they get to a 7 to celebrate. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a huge temptation of, oh, he's a 2 or she's a 2. Oh, it was nice they went to a 3. You know, we'll celebrate when they get to a 7. And I think that's a mistake. Like, it's when someone goes from a 2 to a 3 and everyone loses their minds, that community begins to build and that someone feels that they actually belong to something. That is all.
I have kind of a question because I was sitting here thinking. So, like, I don't know. I'm not quite sure how it works, but I feel like, I mean, I don't know where I am on the little number spectrum, like 1 through 10. But the biggest thing for me, and it was very confusing because you see people all the time. It's like, I'm trying to cuss less. I'm trying to do better. I'm trying to read my Bible more. And, like, boom, stick, friend, thingy. But, I feel like it kind of comes naturally, and it really escalates very quickly whenever like, the dude who likes running is going to run longer. Well, whenever you're just trying to grow closer to God, it kind of all follows. You become more like him, and that's obviously a, quite simple statement that everybody knows, but I just felt like it belonged in here because that's what I found in my experience. Because I was always sitting there like, I really, really want to grow, so I'd be like, I'm going to try to stop this, and I'll stop focusing on that. And I was just like, I'm going to spend some time with God, and then slowly and surely, I wanted to read my scripture. I was like, bro died for me? Like, that's awesome. I want to,
Bro died for me.
It sounds very inconsiderate, but it was in a good way.
Understood.
But yeah, it's my little ad lib.
You said you had a question. What was that question?
It's gone. It's out of my head. I'm not
Sorry.
quite sure.
Okay.
I was yapping.
Do you feel like you belong to LPY and why? Or why not?
We had this conversation in my small group tonight, and I feel like personally I do just because.
You lean forward. There you go.
I feel like I do just because like I was one of those that started coming here for the wrong reasons, like for food and for like whatever, just like hang out with friends. And then I started growing like in the last 2 to 3 years, and I took that like long break, and I started feeling like horrible by myself, and I started like getting like separated from God. And I feel like in the last like month or so, I really got like back to where I was like 6 months and like before then. But I feel like I do just because like conversations like these, like you don't get these like other places.
Great.
Like I went to so many other churches where they'll have like pastors will have sermons or whatever, and then they just say, all right, you're done, out the door.
Yeah.
And like small groups like these, like where you can really like invest your opinion and like have other topics to talk about. I mean, that's helped me grow spiritually a lot.
That's awesome.
Shoot.
Okay, I would say like with the
Oh my goodness. Okay, with the belonging at LPY thing, it's right. It's okay.
Let her. She's good.
I got it. Okay. But I'm kind of like on the same wavelength as you. Like, I felt like at a really spiritual high kind of about 6 months ago, like last winter to I guess about the spring, and then I just kind of wasn't anymore. And that was a really hard thing for me to grasp because it's hard because I was like, what did I do wrong? And so then I kind of started questioning myself and felt like I wasn't worthy in a lot of areas of my life, like at my work, or like I wasn't enough for certain people or family or friends or whatever, or school or like whatever it was. But there was never a time where like I came to Lifepoint or I came to LPY that I didn't feel like I was enough. Like, not that, yes, I'm like good enough for LPY, not like that, but it was more like I felt like I was home. Like I've always felt like everyone here is my family, and I've always just felt loved no matter where I'm at or the circumstance or the situation.
That's awesome.
I think for me, it's sort of like a yes and a no, because for a while I went through a phase where like I just wasn't really good spiritually, and I like anytime I would come to church, like I wouldn't feel worthy coming to church, to where it led me feeling like I didn't to where it led me feeling like I didn't belong. But that was just because like just a lot of things were going on like outside of church that I just I let it affect how I felt towards the church. But like Anna Ruth said, LPY is like my home. Like when I go there, or I mean when I when I come to LPY, I just
you were gonna hit your sneeze. Sorry. Go ahead. Very touching thing you got going on there. Please continue.
But there's so many times that when I do come here, I know that the people around me feel like they belong because of like how great the environment is. Like people are there for the same reason that you are there. And like Jacob said, we come here and we have like deep talks like this, and it makes me feel like I belong because I see that other people think the way that I'm thinking, and like they genuinely have the same desires as I do.
I would say for me, I think Lifepoint is really my home now. I mean, I've been to other churches and stuff, and it really doesn't feel the same at all. Like when they read scripture, they just kind of tell you, they're just like, this means this, but they don't really give you a why. And it always makes me wonder, like, why did it mean that? And it just kind of never made me feel like full. Like I would see it and they'd be like, that means that, and I'm just like, okay, and like what was that? But I love how here, like everything is implied. He implies everything to our lives and like how we can use it, and how other people can use it, and how we can help other people use it. And I think that's one of the best parts. And I mean, honestly, you don't even have to be a 2. You can be a 1 and you can still understand. You can still use all of this stuff in your life. And I think that's a really big part. And it just feels like it's more like mental. It's like more mental health than anything. It's like you just kind of feel it wash over you, I guess. You just feel Jesus wash over you.
That's awesome.
When I first came to LPY, and I met Desi, and I met Anna Ruth, and I met Grace Oldham, and Sarah Hempel. Gosh, sorry, I'm sorry, and so many other people. Just those, and Adri.
And Adri.
Yeah, Adri too. I guess, whatever. I'm just joking.
And Pearl Bilbrey and Clay Minor.
Okay. Anyways, so many people here. What I met, those are just to name a few. Gosh, I'm sorry if I offended you.
Some folks.
When I met some folks, just gosh. Logan Scoggins, you're the most
idiot within 2 minutes.
Not on the podcast, Logan.
Kaylee, go with your story. When you met some people.
I'll wait.
Oh my gosh, I totally remember that. That was hilarious.
It's so funny.
Go ahead.
I guess what I was gonna say was I kind of have an opposite story, and I don't want to sound super pompous when I'm saying this, but I was spiritually mature when I came to LPY, and something that I didn't realize I struggled with in Maryland when I lived there.
There.
Keep going.
That I lacked those type of friends. I lacked those people who understood the Bible, who truly wanted to walk with Jesus. And the small group I was in, like I saw all these girls, and I was like, oh my gosh, they truly want to dive into what Scripture says. This is amazing. I didn't know this is something I didn't have before. And then a few weeks in, we asked the scale question, like on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you think you're at with Jesus? And there were girls in there that I would have said were 10s that were answering 2. And I was like, that was so comforting to know that all these people that are walking alongside Jesus, we're walking in faith together. I'm closing my eyes so I can focus on my words. Or we're also all at different stages, so we're all walking the same walk, but we're all still at different points, and we can help each other through, like, that. And that's something that I love.
Like Kaylee said, something that is like really big to me is, or I guess like Kaylee said, is very comforting to me is that sometimes like I'll be like, that person's a 10 and they'll really say that they're a 2. And that's very comforting to me because
Well, I mean, like,
not that I think it's okay to be 2s.
I've been very clear
Yeah.
that a 10 is levitating off the ground. Like, who have you people been seeing levitate off the ground?
No, like here's a real life story. One time when we were in small group, they asked us from 1 to 10, where are you?
Adri?
And one of the girls were like, "Oh, Adri's like a 9," and I was like,
I remember
No.
that.
I was like, "No, you're wrong. I'm like a solid 5 right now." But it's comforting to know that others, that the way that I think, hold on.
You got it.
It's comforting to know that it's not just me that feels that way, that other people feel that way too. And I feel like we focus so much on how we think other people think of us, but like we're literally all headed towards the same thing. Like we're literally all just living our lives.
And to kind of clarify what that means, I guess it's not so much about we're thinking about what other people think of us. I guess it's just kind of an affirmation and encouragement that you're doing your job right because you are living your life as a light, and that's what our job is.
You feel as though you belong because you're not alone.
Right.
Yes.
And so
okay,
it's not
bottom
necessarily
line.
that it's not necessarily that we think it's acceptable to be 1s or 2s, because I always think you should strive to be as high up on that spectrum as you can. But it is encouraging to know that I could say right now that I'm a 0, and you guys aren't gonna judge me and be like, Kaylee, what the heck are you doing with your life? You guys are gonna, lift me up and encourage me and be like, hey, let's get you back to a 1. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
And I think one little thing to clarify as well, don't like try to compare yourself to other people for your numbers. I think a lot of people try to compare yourself. Like they see someone that they think is a 10 and they're like, I'm a 6. And so they're like, oh, well, that means I must be like a 3. It's not what that means at all. Everyone has their own. Everyone else has their own.
I'm also going to piggyback off of something Kaylee said. Now, I had to put it in my notes because I was forgetting it.
Look at you.
But something I've found like very common, especially like with anything in our life, really. I think I saw some football coach say it one time. It's always stuck in my head. But people who are working hard enough always feel that they're not working hard enough, and the people who aren't working hard enough are always saying, "Oh, I'm doing great." And sometimes you may be doing great and you are doing great, but oftentimes I found someone, like you're always running around with like a chicken with your head cut off, trying to find something else, and you feel like we're not doing enough, and it's good because we do more. And then that was just something I had to add in. And then with the belonging and LPY, I do think it's like different. I remember having prayers where I would thank God for being in this environment, because I wasn't sure I would be who I am today without like coming here. Or like really, if I never got put in your small group, I wasn't sure. Like I was always searching, but I wasn't. I couldn't find people, because even like within church, I shouldn't say it, but sometimes there is like a smaller circle, which it isn't a small circle. Everybody belongs, but sometimes you want to find something out, you dig a little deeper, and once I actually got to dig a little deeper, I just remember like praying and being so thankful to find the people who were so willing to grow in a fashion that I did and at the timing I did. And I don't know, it just really meant a lot, because for a while there it made me feel kind of like, I don't know, just lucky, which I am lucky. So obviously didn't do anything on my own or even me at all, but I was super thankful that I found LPUI when I did.
I have something that I just randomly thought about. Like, who was Wade? Wade was saying how he's how he goes to or how he went to so many different churches, and it just felt weird. Like it felt like he didn't really belong, and it was just so different. Well, I was thinking to like when we went to Mexico on that mission trip, our lives are completely different from the kids that live at the orphanage, and I felt like I just belonged there. And like the kids, like everyone, everywhere we went, you just automatically, they just made you feel like you belonged.
I think that's a really important point, and I think that's where it ultimately comes to a head with all of this is I think the reason why you can go to a different country, because, when I was in the Middle East, I experienced the exact same thing. It's really strange. Anybody that's ever been on an international mission trip, it's very interesting how you can not speak the language, look different, act different. It's very, very different, but simultaneously immediately belong with those people. And the common denominator in that is Jesus. And I know that seems very cliche, but that is literally Galatians 3:28, right? Like that. We're all one in Christ. That the thing that unifies us, the thing that can make us go to Mexico and feel like we belong with orphans in Mexico, even though we have no inkling of understanding of their lives or anything like that, is because they are striving after the same thing we are. It's the gospel.
That's something we were talking about in sermon prep on Sunday, is that we were talking about, like, why is belong one of the core values of LPY. Like, what does that mean? Why do people belong here? Why do we want people to feel like they belong here? And what is it that makes it feel like they belong here, even though so many different types of people can come here? Like 5th and 6th grade to seniors in high school is a pretty big range, so, and we determined that it's because we all come here because we all have that the thing we have in common is the desire to know Jesus. Whether it's people like church veterans, who are pretty deep into their walk with Christ, or people that might just be curious to understand what that might mean. Whether or not they're going to take that step by coming here, they at least have some sort of inkling of curiosity to know what Jesus, or who Jesus is, and what it means to, yeah.
Okay, off of that, I think you're right. Like, I think that the people that are coming to LPY all have that desire to know Jesus, but I think there's like a lot of churches like that, because it's church, like you're gonna want to know Jesus for the most part, but I also think it's because we're all like, I feel like we're all really striving for that and loving each other, and I just think, I think there's places, and I think there's people that maybe say they want to know Jesus, or maybe they even do, but they don't have the environment and the atmosphere to actually do it. And I just think LPY is a place where everybody really loves each other.
Yeah, to sum it up, I think the why we want you here is because we love everyone and we care about everyone. And that's the main thing about Lifepoint. Every day, every time we're here, we break it down is we love you and there's nothing you can do about it. Yep.
That's how we should end it.
Love is why.
All right. Well,
I was just gonna say like one small thing. I think like how she said, like the 5th and 6th graders looking like all in between, and then the juniors and seniors. Like, I've talked to so many like younger kids, and like just talking to them about like their spiritual, like it's helped like grow them so much, and like their eyes just like light up. Just making them feel comfortable and stuff, and like especially like newer like 5th and 6th graders that come here, like just talking to them and like making them feel like they're at home, like making them feel like they belong here.
Yeah,
and I feel like that's just
your influence. Like, oh crap! Well, you got it. This is just like an ad lib, but like your influence with them little kids are so insane. Like I realized that at like winter camp and then at beach camp, like because a lot of the new came into 6th grade, so I had them. But like it's insane. They look up to you big time, and like I guess it's kind of the same way I look up to you. I was like, geez, man, like you're making me. It was kind of pressure.
Yeah.
Like, so I guess that goes along with what Kaylee said. Representing.
Well, I think this is a pretty good place to stop. Tonight has been a really good discussion, and so yeah, we just want to thank y'all for listening, thank y'all for watching, and we love you, and there's nothing you can do about it.